22 Town Council meeting to order. I'm not going to use this thing. I don't like it. We'll start with a prayer by Councilor Pisner.
Dear God, thank you for enabling us to gather here for this meeting. May we have meaningful discussions that will help us to build each other up and do what is right for our town and its residents. Help us to deal with the difficult challenges that we are facing with respect and kindness. And thank you, Lord, for everyone that is gathered here in this room. May we be one of spirit and have a common purpose. Dear God, guide us with all your power and help us walk in unity. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is roll call. Sheila?
Councilor Bosco, Deputy Mayor Sakala,
Here.
Mayor Casati, Councilor Despard, Councilor Finger,
Here.
Councilor Hopkins.
Here.
Councilor Ludwig,
Here.
Councilor Mangini.
Here.
Councilor Pisner.
Here.
Councilor Santinella.
Here.
Councilor Ungary.
Here.
That's 8 members present, 3 absent.
Thank you. As you can see, Mayor Crissati is not here, so you all have to deal with me running this meeting tonight. Next is the fire evacuation announcement. In the event of a fire, there are exits in the back and of the chambers, and to my left, the audience is right. In the event, please exit in a quick and orderly fashion and go down the stairs and out the building. Next, number 5, meeting minutes of the preceding meeting. If I can get a motion to accept the special meeting minutes of February 7th, 2022.
Motion to Second. accept.
Motion by Councilor Mangini, second by Councilor Pisner. Any discussions, additions, deletions? All in favor? Anyone against? Anybody abstain? 9 of us in favor, 8 of us. There's only 8 of us. We're all in favor. Motion to accept the regular meeting minutes of February 7th, 2022.
Motion to accept.
Motion by Councilor Mangini, second by Councilor Ungary. Any additions, deletions, or subtractions? Okay, all in favor? Any abstentions? Any against? All right, unanimous, 8 in favor. Rolling right along, number 6 on the agenda, special guests, there are none. Public communications, number 7. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in front of the council? The first round will be an hour. We'll give you 5 minutes for the first time, 3 for the time after that. Mr. Schmidt, come on up. You know the rules. Please refrain from personalities. And state your name and address. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Schmidt, 1304 Bigelow Commons. Good evening, Town Council members. The recent furor over the pizza assignment given out in a JFK Health class has made its way to this Town Council, as evidenced by a recent video put out by Councilor Matt Despard. Though I'm disappointed that such concern was not shown the students following the original outcry over the assignment, I am encouraged that the assignment is now getting some much-needed attention. I will state unequivocally that threats and or verbal assaults on teachers or administrators or Board of Education members are unwarranted. Besides the moral failing of attacking people in this way, it does nothing but distract from the real issues, which are figuring out not only how this assignment made it to the students, but much more importantly, figuring out how to prevent this from happening again. Whether or not there should be disciplinary action taken is an administrative decision, and there are mechanisms for handling that matter. But if any counselor is looking to defend teachers, they need to realize that the current process is what puts teachers in these positions in the first place. The best defense of teachers, then, is to make certain that this does not keep happening. So instead of levying criticisms at political affiliations and falsely assigning motive to those who speak up about this assignment, counselors should join in the call for oversight of the processes that led to this obviously inappropriate assignment making its way into the hands of minors. Who here is opposed to oversight, when oversight is easily the best way to protect both students and teachers? Presently, there is a proposal from the Board of Education member John Ungary for that board to form a committee to look into the failures that led to the pizza assignment. Now, we can sit here and attack each other, call each other names, and act like a bunch of middle schoolers, or we can look to address the issue like adults and assist your Board of Education colleagues in advancing Mr. Unguyer's proposal. This council has an opportunity to put the attention where it needs to be, on the curriculum and policies that put Enfield schools in such an embarrassing situation to begin with, and not on the teachers. I suggest the council embrace this opportunity. One thing is for certain, ignoring the issue or simply saying it was a mistake is not the answer. So I'm asking this council to help the Board of Education put their energies towards real solutions, because solutions are what Enfield students need. They're what Enfield teachers deserve, and they're what Enfield's residents demand. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak in front of the council for the first time? For the second time? All right, I declare, Counselor Communication, Public Communications closed. We'll move on to number 8 on the agenda, Counselor Communications. Counselor Mangini.
Thank you. Just wanted to thank the North Central Connecticut Chamber of Commerce and all of the surrounding town leaders, including our own interim town manager, Ellen, for attending the phenomenal breakfast this morning. Economic development breakfast was very enlightening, and I thought that it was very well attended. Many people, more than I expected. And Councilman Santinella was there with me. And the food was great, but the speakers were phenomenal. Joe Courtney, and took away a lot of information, a lot of notes that I'll be sharing, shortly. But again, our interim town manager did a phenomenal job highlighting what's happening here in Enfield and our future of Enfield. And Kasha was there as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other counselors for your communication? Counselor Santinella?
Thank you. I had the pleasure last evening of attending a award ceremony for the Enfield Police Explorers. If you recall, we were supposed to have a ceremony for them back in January that was postponed because of the rising cases in COVID. And last evening, we were able to give them the recognition that they deserved. Congressman Joe Courtney, that's a major demotion right there. Congressman Courtney came and recognized each of these individuals. And I was very, very proud to be able to be there and represent the council and the people of Enfield in just acknowledging the work that these young men and women do for us every day. Had a chance to talk to some of them. They're quite a nice young group of people, and we should all be very proud of them. I was also at the police station this afternoon to attend a swearing-in ceremony for our newest police officer, Abdullah Shafiq, who's coming to us. He was a member of the Western New England College Police Force, and I had a chance to meet him, his mom, his dad, and his fiance, and welcome them to Enfield. And I just wanted to extend another congratulations to him and wish him well here in Enfield. Another good meeting that happened this week, Councilor Pisner and I were at the TIF committee meeting, and we had an opportunity to look at the very first applicant who's coming, a developer who is coming forward looking for some credit enhancements. And that committee is, I think, doing an amazing job vetting these candidates, the applications. And I just want to say I owe a lot to Councilor Pisner because she's been holding my hand since she's been involved in this from the beginning. And I'm really proud of the work that committee is doing, looking at these kinds of tax credits. And so I just wanted to point that out. And the final thing, I wanted to just give an update on some things that are going on in the world of our cannabis initiatives. I did have an opportunity to tour a dispensary with several members of the council, Councilor Finger, Councilor Pisner, Councilor Unguyer, and I, along with some members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, toured a dispensary in Holyoke, just as an opportunity to expose folks who had never been to a dispensary to see what these operations are like. And there was no other agenda than that, just to show people what actually happens and how these places function. Last week, I had an opportunity to meet with and tour a growing operation, a micro-growing operation in Sheffield. Mayor Crissati was supposed to come. Unfortunately, he ended up having a conflict, so I took that tour on my own. And we would like to try to schedule additional opportunities for people to come and see that part of the industry as well, to the extent that people are interested in understanding what is going on there. And the Planning and Zoning Commission has begun its deliberation on Enfield's cannabis ordinances. They had their first public meeting last week, where there was a substantial amount of time that was dedicated to developing those ordinances. And so there is some progress, some significant progress going on that front. And that is all I wanted to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Nguyen?
I just wanted to say I also attended the economic breakfast this morning, and it was a great turnout, and our interim town manager did a great job explaining on what's going on in Enfield, and it was interesting to hear what was going on in the neighboring towns as well, and how we can kind of partner with them.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Communications, Councilor Ludwig?
Through the deputy mayor to the town manager, is it possible, I want to congratulate Chief Reggett for successfully completing the human trafficking. I mean, it's a huge, important program. Could we get her to come and give a little background on it? People don't realize human trafficking is everywhere and how important it is that our staff is trained in it. And I mean, first of all, thank you for putting it into the PAR, but this is huge. And I think people don't understand how, unfortunately, how prevalent it really is, even in Connecticut, and we're not close to the border. And so I want to congratulate Chief Reggett, who's a fantastic chief for EMS. And if I could, if we could have her maybe do a little presentation at some point when if she's comfortable. If not, no worries. But man, this is great stuff. So thank you. And tell Chief Reggett thank you.
We can absolutely do that. And I think we were at a Fire Chiefs Association meeting with Councilor Santinella a couple times ago, and that training is going to be shared with the police department. And also, I believe the fire district expressed interest. Unfortunately, it happens more than you'd like to think. And there are opportunities for interstate travel. We do have interstate I-91. We have off-ramps, on-ramps. We have various businesses. We have a lot of hot points, so to speak. So for those people who think that that doesn't happen in Enfield, I can tell you that it does. It happens in all towns, doesn't matter what size. So having those trained eyes to notice things, even if it's, a fire call and you come in and you see an excessive number of mattresses placed in certain rooms, if you find neighborhoods that have significant traffic in and out of a house, but yet there's no representative vehicles and those types of things. Certain licensures that happen through the state for certain types of businesses that all have the same type of licensure address. There's all types of opportunities to look. From an emergency services perspective, there's also an opportunity to respond, especially with patient confidentiality. Just like when you deal with victims of domestic violence, there's opportunities to take people aside and start asking questions in a protected and safe environment. So this is really big for Enfield, and I think that, as Councilor Ludwig said, it's something that we should be proud of and that we should definitely hear more about so that we can spread the word about other people who might be able to keep eyes on things, especially in neighborhoods. So we will schedule that at a time that she can be here.
Whatever. Thank you. And again, congratulate her, I think. And if any of her staff, she's trained to train her. So again, I agree with you. Fantastic. And it's great to see that, we take it very seriously in this town. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilor Communications, Councilor Hopkins?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I did want to compliment Ms. Perciello for scheduling the last blight review meeting last minute notice. It was a very, I think, critical for it to get done. Councilor Ungary and I sat on that meeting. I think it was great, but it's nice to see that these things can be scheduled in that way when a sale or something like that really needs to happen. We, just for members of the public interested in this this recent assignment, we are not a policy board for our town's schools, but I do think it is important to note, just for the public here, if there are threats to school employees and teachers, that is a serious thing. If you disagree with something that the school board is doing or that the schools are doing. There are civil means to do that. I really am just, frankly, somewhat ashamed of the fact that there are school officials getting death threats in town, and that's something I think I want to encourage everybody just to bring the temperature down. My own personal thoughts, I think consent education is very important, but if you disagree, that's totally fine, but we need to do that in an appropriate way, not in a way that results in our kids and school employees being afraid. So I want to encourage everybody to do that. Let's keep it about the kids. So thank you.
Thank you. Good points. Anybody else? Okay. 9 on the agenda, Town Manager Report and Communications.
All of you received the PAR report, and there was a lot of great information in there for this month, so I encourage you to not only peruse it at your convenience, but also keep it as a resource, because I know that a lot of the questions that you get from your constituents can be answered in these monthly reports, so it's a great reference to have moving forward. I wanted to just highlight the chamber breakfast that we went to this morning. I think that it illustrates one of the initiatives that is going to be coming forward to the town council, and that is the reorganization of the development services division that is currently under planning and development. This started last summer. We are restarting that proposal and bringing it forward to the town council in the next several weeks. And I think for those of you who are in attendance and those of you who are not, what one of those takeaways was from this morning is that all of the towns around us have placed a very high priority on very aggressive economic development strategies. So by us moving the development services out from under another department, making a standalone department with a little bit more autonomy and some flexibility, as well as some additional resources, and tying it to property maintenance, which is a division that is also under planning, we're going to be able to stack together a lot of those resources for blight purposes, because now property maintenance is going to be tied to the Clean and Lean program. We're going to have a more streamlined approach to economic development, community development, many of those go together, and have a reporting structure that comes directly into the town manager's office and thus to the town council. So as you think about that reorganization and the other aspects that go with it, keep in mind what happened this morning in terms of where we want to be as a leader in this region as opposed to following. The second item I want to say is related on a personnel basis. Retaining employees is important. The town council last fall put forward that they'd like to explore premium pay as one of our ARPA expenses. So Kasha and I, in conjunction with the Human Resources Department, have created a formula. We looked at a time period that starts March 1st of 2020, and it ended on December 31st of 2021. We then applied that employee list, broke it in half, part-time employees and full-time employees. We also removed employees who have already received premium pay through their divisions, and specifically that was early childcare. So they've already received premium pay through the Office of Early Childhood. Once that was done, we decided that despite some departments saying that they had a higher priority than others, we felt strongly that from a morale perspective, as well as the fact to recognize that all town employees played a critical role during COVID operations in the pandemic, that full-time employees would have a formula of $100 for every month worked during that period. And if you were a part-time employee, it was $50 for every month that you worked during that period. We are running those numbers, double-checking the list, and then that will be presented to you in the next few weeks as a dollar amount number, as well as a rollout plan if that is something that you choose to explore and embrace. So that is also coming down the pike as well. Once that piece is over, the final rule, which is going to replace the interim rule, and there are some significant changes, goes into effect on April 1st. So the town manager's office, and we are going to take that ensuing 6 weeks to review, look at some of the ideas that came forward, also some of the ones that have come forward since, reissue a proposal list for the ARPA funds, and bring it forward for either committee work or town council committee work as a whole, as we continue to roll out what those funds are. We still have quite a bit of time for planning. I know that many of you heard this morning and have probably read in the newspapers that there's other towns and cities that have really spent their money and encumbered it already. And that's fine. There is no rush to do so. We have to encumber and appropriate within the next 2 years, and everything has to be spent within the next 3.5 years. So there's plenty of time to be thoughtful about this. So that will be coming down the pike as well. Councilor Santinella touched upon cannabis. We are monitoring the zoning regulations, and we have asked them to expedite because we want to be ready so that we are not missed when the window opens for the state, which is going to be in April and May. Those communities that have ordinances in place and are ready are going to be the ones that potential producers as well as potential dispensary owners look at first. So we don't want to miss that. There's also been a lot of discussion, and I know that many of these items have hit the desks of the town council members about our revaluation process. Not only was it a revaluation year, but it was also a year in which the quadrennial reports were due for all of the tax-exempt nonprofits, religious organizations, group homes, anybody else that qualified. That only happens once every 20 years. So there was a real pressure on the assessor's office in order to get all of this done. So from that, especially with a new assessor who has a very different approach with different methodologies that he's employed that many people in the Enfield community had not seen before, including an increased use of technology and drawing down on additional resources from the state, it caused a lot of conversation, especially in the area of the 490s for farmland, for tax-exempt nonprofits, as well as a new methodology that was used for commercial vehicles. So over the course of the last probably month, we've been having one-on-one conversations with some of those affected people and entities, and we've actually, especially in terms of the farmland, have now gone down from the beginning, which there were 77 parcels that were in question. We have now whittled that list down through the series of one-on-one meetings, reviews, people coming in with additional information, clarifications. We are now down to 25 parcels that are still in question concerning a change of use, and those are going to continue to be documented. So what I have for you that we are going to disseminate for your use is a color spreadsheet in which it talks about those that are taken out and for what reason. Those categories include that they were erroneously categorized because they were open space. There's also a color code for those that were taken out but have now since been returned to 490 status. There is a color code for those that did not have an application on file with the assessor's office. There is a color for the owners that have agreed that certain parcels are to be removed because they did have a change of use. Then there is another color for those that there are applications, but there were no updates and they are missing forester reports, which is a state requirement. And then there's the 25 that remain in question for change of use. Between that and the meetings that we've had with some of the nonprofits, we've had a significant amount of new information that has come into the assessor's office. However, we know that we haven't reached everyone and that there may still be some entities out there that have not really fully explored the impact of what this means or are aware of it. So we are working with the assessor's office to really press pause on some of these and extend that opportunity after the grand list has been signed next Monday in order to continue to have these conversations, to be assured that everybody within the town of Enfield, whether it be a business with DMV issues, a nonprofit, a church, or farm, has the opportunity to come in and be heard. So for those of you who are hearing from some of your constituents, I encourage you to have them call us so that we can assess, we can look at their file, we can give an idea of what might the issue be, and then we, if necessary, schedule those meetings. But we really need to know about it, not just from an anecdotal, I'm getting a lot of calls, people are asking me. We need to know who they are in order to make sure that we service them to the best of our ability. So I would just encourage you over the next couple of weeks, especially as information goes out, that you communicate with us or send people to us so that we can help them navigate this process. And lastly, before I turn it over to the assistant town manager, I'm just going to reiterate that we are changing up our process for budgets. We are asking for some additional strategic planning. We are asking for people to be thoughtful about efficiencies and collaborations that may be underutilized right now. We are also going to be changing the way that we do capital improvement budget planning with some new forms. So we will keep you apprised of that as those get released to the department so that you can follow along in the budget process. Also within the next week, we're going to be asking you from kind of a survey perspective how you want to conduct those budget hearings with departments, as well as probably scheduling development services for the grants, because those are due. Social services. Those are due back to the department next Monday. That means there is going to be a significant amount of meetings that are potentially going to be requested based on how you've done it in the past, or we can explore some new ways of doing it. Maybe there's a select amount of departments you'd like to talk to and not everybody. So we're going to have that, and you'll be hearing from our office about what your preference is, whether it's to latch on to some of the evenings to do a couple of those budgets, or whether you'd like to revert to how it's been done in the past, which is, I guess, a Saturday, or if there's any new ideas that the town council would like to bring forward about how best to immerse yourself in this budget process and understand what the needs are and what the requests are. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Kasia Perciello, who has some additional updates from our office.
And I'll just add, in terms of formulating the budget, I have been working with Paul Russell and our IT department to meet with individual department heads, specifically on IT-related budget needs. So that's, for example, software, hardware, telecom systems, whatever that may be. So I've been in the process of it. That just really got started, and I'll be doing that over the next coming weeks. So we'll hear about that. And then we actually meet with Paul to kind of look at it through a big picture that, these are the requests we've received through that process. In addition, I will share that I have been very busy researching some solar options. There's been a lot of companies that have recently spoken with the town. There's a lot of just solar going around throughout the state. A lot in the media about it. So I have been meeting or beginning to meet with various companies. I also have a meeting scheduled with one of our neighboring towns just to discuss their experience and really, make sure we're going in the right direction for the town. And also our Department of Public Works Director and our Finance Director have been involved in the conversations, just so we have a lot of staff, who truly understand the issue from all perspectives there. And lastly, but not least, there will be a DPW subcommittee meeting scheduled, I believe, for next week. One of the things we're going to be looking at there is the facility use policy, and there's two pieces there. Number one, we will be looking to add the Shaker Field Lego house, as it's been known, to the facility use policy. So that could be rented out with the field. For usage as a concession stand or whatever it may be. So that is one area we'll be looking at, an appropriate fee for that and appropriate usage for that. And in addition, one area we have to look at is the language in the facility use policy around exempt status. We have requests coming in for exempt status, and language is a little vague right now, where it reads that it needs to be submitted annually, but also reviewed annually. So we need to take a look at the will of the subcommittee and what the intent was and how to do that, how to have that language best going forward. So that'll be next week, I believe. Should be scheduled any day now. And that is all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the town manager's office? Councilor Mangini?
Thank you. Thank you both. Ellen, I noticed in your project activity report, thank you for labeling it, one of the items that caught my eye was the first-time homebuyer program. I think it's great that Nelson is going to, in conjunction with a mortgage company, put out a seminar or series of seminars regarding first-time homebuyer program. I did speak with him briefly this morning, but what I would like as a realtor, and I probably speak on behalf of other realtors in the area, somehow we've got to get this word out, because I myself have buyers, but without the proper education on how to direct them through this program, it's complicated, it's difficult. And I think the seminars themselves will be very helpful. So could we somehow do some heavy advertising or solicitation, at least, to the realtors and then also through the consumers? Because these are very important programs and they're very beneficial to people. Thank you.
Councilor Ludwig?
Quick question. So when will we regroup on the ARPA? I'm sorry, I apologize. I know you said it. What's the 10? Is it next meeting in March or the March meeting after? Are you looking for ideas from us? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
We're going to present the proposal for premium pay on March 7th, which has a open-ended action on it. At that point, we will have revised the list that was previously presented, giving you some ideas about what the final rule means for those, because I don't think that all of them are eligible.
So the final rule, what about small businesses and anyone who may have lost their job because of a choice they had to make, which again, most of those folks worked over the pandemic. Is that be part of the?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be
Yes.
part of the proposal, or does that not fall within the rule?
No, it is. So
Okay.
that would fall under small business mitigation.
Perfect. I mean, that
and-
was asked if we can make sure, my recommendation, make sure, please, we have that. I mean, I agree with the employees. I know a lot of them did a great job over, but also a lot of folks in town as well. And so that's great if it can be part of the proposal.
Yes, it will
Well,
be.
Perfect. Thank you. And sorry, I just want to be clear. I know you guys are doing a great job with, trying to rectify some of the assessment things. Curious, when you mean the list came down, do you mean that, so if individual A, it's been resolved, or do they still have to now file an appeal, to the appeals board for March? Just want to make sure I'm clear what that means.
So out of the 77 parcels, there are only 25 that remain that are questionable in terms of what the assessor has said is a change of use, which may or may not be agreed upon by the
So,
owner.
so they still have a chance to make sure the 18th of
Yes.
March, they can appeal the forms on the website.
25 of them already have.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that it's 25 of the ones that are change of use, but 25 people on the spreadsheet, which will be emailed to you tomorrow, have already filed their Board of Assessment Appeal application. And we're encouraging everyone to do so,
Good,
because
right.
then if it's resolved, they can pull their application, but at least they're protected.
You may not be, I apologize, this is an unfair question to you, but if someone loses, so it doesn't change based on the assessment, and even if they say they lose their appeal, I know some of these are huge increases in taxes for an individual. Barring is there a way that through the statute that we can spread that out, the change over a year or so? Do we have discretion through the town to say, okay, say if you're paying $500 on something, now it's $40,000? It's a lot. I mean, whether the appeals go, is there a way we can spread that out to the individual so they can, become compliant if that's what has to happen, or does it? The statute doesn't allow that, has to be happen based on, you know what I mean? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Is there a way we can spread that out to at least give that individual a chance to be compliant?
We are moving toward pausing all implementation until October 1st, 2022. In some cases, that may not be possible. If there was a failure to file, if there was a change of use, if there is faulty paperwork or no paperwork. In those cases, the Board of Assessment Appeals does not have statutory authority to reinstate someone. However, they can reapply through the application process in the
Okay.
fall and be reinstated. What the Board of Assessment Appeals can do is obviously the disagreement of a value to date, whether it's the tillable land classifications or the outright assessment of a 490 being in or out, they can restore that. We are trying to be very thoughtful about this process because, as those of you who may know, if the Board of Assessment Appeals puts you back in, the assessor can take you back out if he doesn't feel that there's statutory reason for them to be in. We are trying to avoid all of that by
Right.
having these conversations now so that we don't start a vicious cycle, which you see in many other communities.
Right. I think the other thing, too, that worries me about this is some of these people, again, do they now have to go every year to the assessment appeals? I mean, is that really what we want the role of government to be? And I don't think that is. So, again, we want people to be compliant. And I hope that's part of it. Look, you're right. This shouldn't be and again, that's why I just want to make sure that's good. I mean, because I want folks to know that we're trying to work with them.
Yes.
And it's important, again, to be compliant and fill the paperwork out that you have to do. And I think the 490 issue actually is a little greater than actually the assessment. Gets into, again, what do you want your town to be developed as, which is another big piece here that we're dealing with, as you've talked about economic development. So I'm glad that we're doing that. I'm glad we're encouraging people to appeal, because they should if they don't feel, I mean, it's there for their right to do it. And I'm glad if whatever happens, again, I think this is one, in my opinion, we need to have kid gloves, because I don't think people are doing it on purpose that they weren't in compliance, in my opinion. I know there's always that person. So, I mean, I'm not naive, but still.
I think it's been an interesting process for a lot of the
Right.
people involved on both
Right.
sides of the table. And I would be remiss if I didn't note that the Agricultural Commission has played a very large role. And I think that we need to give them some additional responsibilities in order to create a marketing and communications plan for new farmers, for second-generation farmers, for people who may be taking over some of these roles for these family farms, because there was a lot of, I didn't know.
Right.
And that's okay. We're going to fix all that. But that role of that commission here in this town, I think could really play a pivotal role moving
I
forward.
agree, and if people haven't learned anything over the last 2 years, if we don't have local growers we can count on, and I mean, our food supply can be cut off like that.
Yes.
I mean, that's why we have to have good local growers. I mean, it's so important for our economy and for actually, again, no matter what you believe, the food supply can be cut off like that. You need folks locally who are producing. So I appreciate that. And my last thing, through you, it's great to see the snowshoes being used. I'm going to take credit for that. And by the way, folks, that's it. The other thing, learn, get out and do something. Exercise, get healthy, get out and walk. We have snowshoes. We have an ice rink that we did for this year. We have a beautiful track right here I already see kids doing those hoverboards. Get out and, again, get active and get healthy. So again, great. I appreciate the update on the snowshoes because I think it's cool. Thank you. Apologize. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I would like this. Councilor Ungary, were you?
I'm all set.
Thank
you.
Councilor Hopkins?
Thank you. I agree with Councilor Ludwig's approach with this. I think it's great that the town manager's office has been so responsive in figuring out these tax concerns. I think the 490 program is really important, just as the land that's protected by it is important, the community. So it's really good to see. My question is, if somebody has a concern or a question about this, if they're an affected party, who's the best person to contact to get this sorted out, if not a counselor?
It would be us. And I say that not in order to co-opt the assessor's office, but because they are so busy right now trying to get that grand list signed for February 28th that I don't want to add any additional administrative work to them. So we are going to be the ones who are triaging anybody who has questions. Apparently, Enfield never signs their grand list on time. And I think that shows one of the foundational weaknesses in terms of the workforce and the fact that that office needs to have some additional support. Maybe seasonal, maybe full-time, maybe some additional attention paid to cross-training. But when you don't have adequate staff, you see that these are the things that fall through the cracks. Marketing and communications, community service, customer service, outreach, opportunities for people to understand and then come into the office and be able to deal with this. Those opportunities are few and far between based on the work that has to happen in that office, both on the tax collection side and on the assessment side. So we're the point people for the next month or so, and then we will turn it back over with a new set of policies and some strategies in place so that this doesn't happen in the future.
All set, Councilor Hopkins?
Thank you.
Okay. My only question, I guess, Kasha, is the solar is one of the places, transfer station, I believe Donald Nunes had discussed there was a possibility for some solar at the transfer station, and that was going to be, I think, on the agenda for joint facilities their next meeting.
So we are looking at that one. That one is actually currently with our town attorney's office. There's a lot of timing and deadlines with that one that are very they're approaching us quickly, including an 824 referral. A few things in the air there, but that is one of them.
Perfect. Okay. I'm glad to see that on the list. Okay. Everybody else all set? Okay. Town attorney report.
Yes.
Mr. Talberg.
Excuse me, Madam Deputy Mayor, members of the council, two quick things. One, to respond further to Councilor Hopkins. For those taxpayers or property owners who don't have counsel, definitely they should go to the town manager's office. Most persons who file tax appeals don't have counsel. They go right to the Board of Tax Appeals. There were two property owners, taxpayers who had legal counsel and disputed the revocation of their exemption. They reached out to our office. We immediately responded. And one of those has been resolved. The other one, we're on the cusp. We're like this close to getting it resolved. I won't identify the property owners, but yeah, if anyone doesn't have counsel, to the town manager's office. Obviously, if they have counsel, they should reach out to the town attorney. And second, on a positive note, as we approach the 2-year anniversary of COVID, I thought I'd give you just a brief update on the COVID mandates, because it's been very personal to our office. During the height of COVID, it seemed like all we were doing was dealing with executive orders. They started one a day, then it was one a week, then it might be one a month. And then as we had spikes and the downslope, you'd get a new executive order that was like a Venn diagram. You had to figure out what was being extended and what was not. But what's important from my perspective as your town attorney is that almost all of those executive orders were proclamations from the governor, in many cases delegating some authority to the chief executive officer in a municipality, the town manager. But last Tuesday, a week ago, we had legislation, House Bill 5047. You may have heard of this on the news, but do you believe everything you hear on the news? It's one thing to have it in the news. It's another to have the law in your hand. And so what the law did was different from all those prior executive orders. It allowed many of them to lapse, with the exception of 11 very specific executive orders that were going to continue. And then with regard to the mask mandate, most importantly, I suppose, again, for much of the pandemic, that was something that on a local level was up to the CEO of each municipality. What we have now, the Reader's Digest version of the latest iteration, is that a week ago, the legislature, not the governor, the legislature passed House Bill 5047. It was signed by the governor. It allows the Department of Public Health up until June 30 to determine if we have additional spikes that they could impose mandates, but otherwise it delegated authority, most specifically for schools, to the local boards of education as of February 28. And I'm sure you all know, a week ago today, February 15, the Enfield Board did vote, or announced rather, that masks will be recommended in Enfield schools, but not required except in two limited circumstances where federal funds are at issue. That would be on public transportation, or I think it's the Stowe Early Learning Center, which is, and Head Start, which depends on federal funding. So, of course, I would defer to the superintendent of schools, but as your town attorney, having lived for these past 2 years, having to digest these executive orders, to know now that we don't have another executive order, we have a law, which is significant because we're getting back to the norm. And just a kernel of good news as we get ready for spring, that maybe we're heading towards some sense of normalcy as we come out of this. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Attorney Talberg? Councilor Ludwig?
So, to my question last summer, I mean, we should officially pull out of emergency. Yeah, I mean, so at some point, to your point, getting back, we shouldn't be under emergency. The town should, I don't know if we need to buy a resolution. I mean, I know when this happened, you know, I mean, we really should get out of emergency rule. So it goes back to being a manager-council form of government officially, as our charter says. So
Yes.
I guess, so my question is, I mean, I know there's reasons why we didn't want to do it in the summer, but why shouldn't we do it now? I mean, it's time locally.
Good question. Here's the answer. March 12, 2020, the town manager issued a local emergency declaration. It was premised upon the declaration of emergency that had been declared by the president and the governor. I was on a meeting last week with the executive board of CAMA, the Connecticut Association of Municipal Attorneys, and I said, hey, everybody, now that we're here, is everybody going to be rescinding their local executive orders? And some said, yes, we anticipate that soon. Some of the larger municipalities said no, because there are some larger municipalities that are going to still have some local mandates, and they need a local emergency order in place to do that. We're evaluating it. There will come a time, I think, in the near future, hoping everything goes well, where I assume that that issue will be addressed. We're not quite there yet, but it's, I think, on the horizon.
Thank you. I mean, again, we're the Constitution state, and it'd be nice to get back to living under our Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the town attorney? All right, number 11, report of special committees of the council. Anybody have special committees they want to report? I know we did a little already. I have one, just policy and procedures. Councilor Pisner, myself, and Councilor Santinella have been on that policy and procedures subcommittee, and we've met a couple of times with the town attorney and the town manager's office. So hopefully within the next month, we will have a new policy and procedures document to be voted on by the council. They will have changes in the agenda, which I think will make everybody happy because it will be much easier to follow along, much cleaner, much more streamlined. And then maybe just a little bit of language change in the policy and procedures, actual document, just cleaning some portions up to make sure that we're in line with state law and some of the new, virtual world, new age things that we've been doing. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll have that within the next month. Anything else? Moving right along, old business number 12, A stays on the table. 13, new business. A, consent agenda, there is none. B, appointments town council appointed, none. C, appointments town manager appointed, town council approved, none. And D, appointments P&Z appointed, council approved, none. Moving on to 14, items for discussion. A, consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda. 1 is discussion resolution regarding changing the voting district for District 1, the location. 2, discussion resolution request for transfer of funds for the Register of Voters for $2,500. 3 is a discussion resolution to approve the proposed pay rates for summer, seasonal, and temporary employees in the Recreation Division, effective August 1st. 2021. 4, discussion resolution request for transfer of funds for social services. And 5, discussion resolution authorizing the town manager to sign a site lease agreement with New Singular Wireless to place cellular equipment on a radio tower located at 293 Elm Street, Enfield. Any questions on any of these 5 consent agenda items? Councilor Pisner.
On the social service one for the $5,000, I'd like some clarification on that if possible. The $5,000 is to cover the cost of change management, technical assistance, and coaching. If I could just have clarification as to what that's going to be.
So with the reorganization, we have a lot of employees that are doing additional duties that have had a change of scope in their job. So the director is implementing some professional development as well as some coaching and counseling in order to make sure that they're successful in their new roles.
Okay, so it's off-premise then? When you're saying it, you're saying development. Is it something where they're taking something?
I'm not sure if it's on-premise or
Okay.
off-premise, but
All right.
it's just something in order to help them, equip them with the tools necessary in order to take on their additional responsibilities and new roles.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilor Hopkins?
For that social services training money, that is within the budget currently. There's no additional budget impact. And then also an unrelated question for the folks who are in District 1. This polling place will be back at Fermi, just so everybody knows. I think everyone who's...
JFK.
Oh, JFK, sorry. My apologies. And so I think everybody who's affected is getting a letter. That's less of a question, but thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ludwig?
Real quick question on the wireless. Just, did we ever have to have regulations for 5G? I remember we asked this question back, and I'm not questioning whether we have the tower or anything, but I thought wasn't there, so do we know if it's a 5G, like if it's an attachment to do 5G? Do we know that's going on? And if so, can we just figure that out with all the back and forth of what's happening with 5G? Just curious. I mean, you don't have to have an answer now if you want to get back to me, but I think, and if we don't, I think that's something we need to refer to planning and zoning at some point for them to take a look at, how we're letting some of these additional things to the towers. I remember there was I thought the state was putting a more, I apologize, it's been a little bit, but I thought the state was putting a little bit of a freeze on it. So I'm just curious if they're making adjustments to these towers. Is it for 5G? I'm assuming it is. And I know you don't have the answer, but I'm just curious.
We can find out. I
Yeah.
know that we receive Pura confirmation before any of these get to the agenda.
Right, yeah, I know, but they never answered the question. I used to respond all the time asking, is this 5G? And they never answer the question, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions on the consent agenda items? Sheila, do I have to do a motion to approve them, or do we just do roll call and?
Excuse me. We to make a motion in a second and
Show of hands.
show of hands. yeah.
Right, so motion to approve all of them, show of hands.
Correct.
or-
All
okay.
as one fell swoop, right?
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the
Motion
consent
to
agenda
approve
items?
all of them.
By Counselor Mangini, seconded by Counselor Ungary. Any discussion further? Okay. All in favor? By show of hands. Any abstain? Any against? Unanimous, 8 in favor. Thank you. Moving on to B, 14B, appointment town council appointed. 1, prison liaison committee. Do I have a nomination? Counselor Prisoner?
I'd like to nominate Gretchen Pfeiffer Hall.
Second.
Nomination by Counselor Pisner, second by Counselor Ludwig. Any other nominations? Motion to close, please.
Motion to close?
Counselor Ludwig and seconded by Counselor Ungary. Any discussion? Sensing none, roll call.
So don't you have to think you have to, everyone raise their hands to close, then the roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just to be, yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's, all in favor of closing nominations? I did skip a step.
Just making
Okay.
sure. yeah.
Thank you. And now roll call, please.
Counselor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
Gretchen Pfeiffer Hall?
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Thank you. 2, another prison liaison committee. Do I have a nomination for this person?
I nominate Mr. Tim Slade for reappointment.
Nomination by Counselor Ludwig,
Second.
second by Counselor Ungary.
I have a motion to close nominations.
Motion to close by
Second.
Counselor Ludwig, seconded by Counselor Pisner. All in favor of closing nominations? And any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, sensing none, Sheila, roll call, please.
Counselor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4,
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
all right, moving on to C, appointment town manager appointed, council approved, we have none. D, appointments P and Z commission appointed, council approved, none. And E, discussion resolution. Request for transfer of funds for Department of Public Works in the amount of 200,000, wait, that's not, uh-oh. Yep, I have E right here, I don't know why that was up there, my bad. Yes. Request for a transfer of funds within the police department budget in the amount of $13,000. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 4, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made to police, professional development, $13,000. From police, uniforms, $7,000. Transfer travel, $6,000. Certification, I hereby certify that the above stated funds are available as of February 9th, 2022. John Wilcox, Director of Finance, and approved by Ellen Zaposasu, Acting Town Manager, dated February 16th, 2022.
So moved.
By Counselor Mangini. Seconded by Counselor Ungary. Ellen, any discussion or any input? All right. Any questions for the Town Manager's Office? Any discussion? All right. Sensing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Moving on to item F, discussion resolution, request for transfer of funds for Department of Public Works for fuel tanks at Enfield schools in the amount of $200,000. Resolved that in accordance with Chapter 4, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made. General Fund, from General Fund revenue, appropriated fund balance, $200,000. 2, general fund unallocated transfers to capital, $200,000, and capital and non-reoccurring fund from CIP fund revenue 2021 to 2022 in the amount of $200,000. 2, fuel tank removal, construction services, $200,000. Certification, I hereby certify that the above stated funds are available as of February 15th, 2022. Signed, John Wilcox, Director of Finance, approved by Ellen Zaposasu, the Town Manager, on February 16th, 2022.
So moved.
By Councilor Mangini,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Ungary. Any discussion? Sensing none. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't see you there.
Just real, I don't, through Deputy Mayor to the Town Manager, people need to understand the reason why we're going to do it. If we don't do it, we get fined. Maybe just nice to let the public know that, we actually have to do it. And good news is that, the school system actually changed over to natural gas, which is cleaner. So there's some good, the reason why we're doing it is because they converted over, and if we don't take them out, we're going to get fined $25,000. I think it's $25,000 a day. So just so I just think it's good for the public to know that we're trying to prevent any further, waste of taxpayer money. Sorry, thank you.
No, that's a good point. It brings us in compliance with the DEP. So, anything else? All right, sensing none. Sheila, roll call, please.
Counselor Pisner. 4. Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item G, discussion resolution. Resolution regarding referral to Planning and Zoning Commission for the proposed discontinuance of a portion of Old Nealon's Road. Whereas the town of Enfield has received a request from the owners of 74 Town Farm Road, Joseph C. and Jacqueline C. Bosco, to discontinue pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes, Section 13A-49, a portion of Old Nealon's Road. And whereas the council must refer this proposed transaction to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a report in conformance with the requirements of Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-24. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the proposed discontinuance described above be referred to the Planning and Zoning Commission in conformance with the requirements of Connecticut General Statute, Section 8-24, prepared by the Town Attorney's Office on February 10th, 2022.
So moved.
By Councilor Ungary, seconded by Councilor Finger. Any discussion or questions? Yes, Councilor Hopkins.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think maybe a little background might be helpful to the
I agree.
town. I was just going to note that for anybody who's seen this it's kind of hard to call it a road, but there is an opening, it's a paper road, an opening off of Town Farm Road. Personally, I like avoiding the liability for the town if somebody were to turn down that and get into a horrible accident or something, because it's not a paved road. But if someone could give some background, that would be lovely, just about this sort of quirky paper road.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So what you're doing here tonight is just the statutory referral to Planning and Zoning Commission. You're not taking any additional action. It's a prerequisite that Planning and Zoning looks at the request about whether it makes sense for the town to discontinue the road. From the town attorney's perspective, we believe it does. There's a map in the packet, and you can see it's kind of a historical anomaly that there's this paper road. It's not uncommon that when development occurs, there might be a paper road left in case there's future development. I don't have the date specifically for how long it's been in that unused condition, but the town staff has been out there. I know John Cabibo and Attorney Serrato went out and did a site visit and determined that the town has no interest in ever using that as a public way. And so it made sense to honor the request to discontinue the road, given the fact that it'll never be used for a public way as far as anyone can tell. PZC will take a look at that. Presumably, they will give it that approval, and then it will, I think, have to come back for a formal discontinuance. So this is the first time at bat to take a look at it. After PZC acts on it, I believe it'll come back to you again.
Thank you.
All set, Councilor Hopkins? All right. Any other discussion or questions? Sensing none. Sheila, roll call, please.
Counselor Pisner. 4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
It's 8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Thank you. Item H on the agenda, discussion resolution waiving bid requirements for the environmental services and construction administration services for the Angelo Lamagna Activity Center. Whereas the town of Enfield is currently preparing 17 North Main Street property for demolition, and whereas the town is also proposing that the 19 Church Street property be demolished, and whereas Fuss & O'Neill Incorporated has prepared an environmental assessment and demolition specifications for the 17 North Main Street property, and in providing these services at the 19 Church Street property, as well as providing construction administration services for the demolition of both 17 North Main Street and 19 Church Street, will allow the town to bid the demolition and environmental abatement of both properties under one bid package at a cost and time saving to the town. And whereas Fuss & O'Neill Incorporated's prior work on the 17 North Main Street property makes them uniquely qualified to perform this work. Now therefore be it resolved that the town council does hereby find, based on the foregoing compelling public interest and in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 8D, that it is therefore against the best interest of the town to solicit bids for the environmental services at the 19 Church Street property. Date prepared, February 10th, 2022, by Nelson Terreso, Deputy Director of Economic and Community Development.
So moved.
By Councilor Mangini, seconded by Councilor Ungary. Any discussion or questions? Councilor Mangini?
Just want to make a comment. I know the resolution is clearly and very well prepared, but just to note that our Community Development Department is suggesting and encouraging that we do the bid waiver to save the town money. And I think it's important to note that's the reason for it, because Fuss & O'Neill have been involved in this project from the onset. So that would be the reason why we're going to go forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hopkins?
Thank you. Just very briefly, I, as a general rule, don't like bid waivers. This was the subject, this particular project was the subject of a recent development services meeting. And it was good to hear that there are cost savings as a result of this bid waiver. And also time savings. I think that's a big part of this here. I know that Nelson Terreso has been working a lot on this to get this property ready for market so that people, the town can move forward with development of that section of town. So that's good to hear. I'm glad that there are other folks who, have a little concerns about bid waiver things generally. So thank you, and thank you to everybody who's worked on this.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussions? Sensing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Pisner.
4.
Counselor Santinella.
4.
Counselor Ungary.
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Finger.
4.
Counselor Hopkins.
4.
Counselor Ludwig.
4.
Counselor Mangini.
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item I, discussion resolution to accept the deed for a portion of Orlando Drive. Whereas in the mid-1980s, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the development of the Hamlet of Enfield condominium complex on Orlando Drive, and whereas, as part of the zoning approval process, the developer, MTL Enfield Development Company, was required to convey a strip of land to the town of Enfield as an extension of Orlando Drive. And whereas the above noted strip of land lies between the Hamlet and Eagle Rock Apartments at Enfield, formerly known as Countrywood, at Enfield, and whereas the new owners of Eagle Rock, during the title review process, discovered that the above noted strip of land was never formally deeded to the town. And whereas town staff found the original unrecorded deed from MTL Enfield Development Company to the town in PZC's archived records. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby accept the warranty deed from MTL Enfield Development Company to the town of Enfield, prepared by the town attorney's office on February 14th, 2022.
So moved.
by Counselor Mangini. Second by Counselor Santinella. Any questions or discussions?
I'll
Attorney
give you a little
Talbert?
bit of background
Sure.
for the record.
Thank you.
This is like a law school exam. This is the opposite of Old Neylands Road. Old Neylands Road, we had a paper road never used. This is the opposite. This is a strip of land, I think it's 60 feet by 216 feet, that was supposed to be dedicated to the town as a public way 35 years ago or so. It comes to our attention through Councilor Santinella, who a constituent in his district, Jim Hausman of Eagle Rock Properties, recently purchased the apartment complex, and as a condition of the financing, needed to have this strange little strip of land figured out. Who owned that land? Through meeting with the constituent and talking it through, it was determined that the town should have accepted this way back when. Attorney Serrato located the original deed in the archives. It will be recorded. In order to accept that land, we just need your approval as town council, and that's what the resolution is. We recommend you approve it without hesitation.
Any more hesitation? Any questions for Attorney Talbert?
No, I just, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to thank Attorney Talberg and your team for looking into this. And from what I understand, the deed was sort of found in the attic of the building. And thanks for crawling up there and getting it. I will say, I spoke with Mr. Hausman. They are, it's a very fascinating company. They are going to invest about $3.5 million into this this development to bring it up to speed, repair boilers, the exterior, create a dog park, and really transform that community, which is what they are known for doing. And one of the things I learned in business school is you got to know when to call the lawyers. And when he called me and explained this, I was like, we have to call the lawyer right now. And so thank you, Attorney Talberg, for the work. And I'm sure Mr. Hausman will be very grateful for the work that you guys did. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Santinella. Anything else? Sensing none. Sheila, roll call, please.
Counselor Pisner? 4. Counselor Santinella?
4.
Counselor Ungary? 4. Deputy Mayor Sakala?
4.
Counselor Finger?
4.
Counselor Hopkins?
4.
Counselor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Mangini?
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
And item J, discussion resolution authorizing the acting town manager to sign the Collegium settlement agreement with Scott and Scott clients. Be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council hereby authorizes the acting town manager to sign on behalf of the town of Enfield the Collegium settlement agreement with Scott and Scott clients pursuant to the discussion with the town's legal counsel in executive session on February 22nd, 2022, prepared by the town attorney's office on February 14th, 2022.
So moved.
By Councilor Mangini.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Ungary. Any discussion or questions?
May I, for
Yes,
the record,
please.
Madam Deputy Mayor, so 2 things to note. One, this is a smaller opioid settlement. It is not the larger settlement negotiated by the state's attorney generals. Under this proposed settlement, Enfield can expect to receive approximately $28,911. As part of the agreement, there is a provision that the parties agree that any public statements or disclosure regarding this agreement should be limited to stating the material terms, which I just did, but there shouldn't really be much comment beyond that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Sensing none. Sheila, roll call, please.
Counselor Pisner? 4. Counselor Santinella?
4.
Counselor Ungary?
4.
Deputy Mayor Sakala?
4.
Counselor Finger?
4.
Counselor Hopkins?
4.
Counselor Ludwig?
4.
Counselor Mangini?
4.
8 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
15 on the agenda, miscellaneous. There is none. 16, public communications. If there is anybody in the audience who would like to speak before the council again? Okay, sensing none. 17, councilor communications. Any councilors wishing to discuss anything? I will say thank you for bearing with me. Almost got it. But I appreciate it. Thank you for going easy on me. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Counselor Ungary, seconded by Counselor Pisner. Thank you.